So, this week in the Sacred Gathering, we're going to be looking at a section out of Matthew chapter 10. This is the conclusion of what is sometimes called the missionary discourse in the book of Matthew. And I think the idea of mission, the idea of being a missionary, has some very specific connotations in most people's minds. So, I wanted us to just start out by saying, okay, what is the stereotype, good or bad, of Christian mission? Is this something that we're positive about? Is this something that we're negative about? Do we like this language? Let's like kind of hash some of that out before we get started. Then let's look at kind of post the perception, post what most people are thinking. Does this in fact fit what Jesus and his early disciples did? What looks the same? What looks different? I get we're in a very different cultural situation than they are, but kind of what's the core? What is it we're trying to get at? So this section starts, the whole chapter 10 is this kind of one single discourse as Jesus is about to send his disciples out. But I actually wanted to start just a couple verses earlier because I actually think at the end of chapter 9, we get a glimpse into Jesus' heart and why he is sending people out in the first place. And it comes from this. So in Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 and 38, Jesus traveled among all the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues, announcing the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every sickness. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were troubled and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The size of the harvest is bigger than you can imagine, but there are few workers. Therefore, plead with the Lord of the harvest to send out workers for his harvest." So I think this section shows Jesus' heart, why he is desiring to come to them in the first place. I think it's an important reminder of what this language of mission is actually trying to get us at. The language of mission, or what's often called the Missio Dei, the mission of God, just comes from the theological insight. Not that we need to be converting people, not that the role is some kind of subjugation of all people so all people are alike and think alike, although that's what's been done in the name of mission all the time. But mission actually comes from the insight that we do not have a God who hangs back. We have a God who moves towards us, right? God, whether it's in the Old Testament, in the Exodus, going to a slave people and offering them freedom, offering them a new identity so that they could therefore go to the rest of the world and invite them into God's family. Or even more importantly, Jesus moves towards people in pain by becoming human in the first place. God is, again, not sitting back, hoping that we'll try really hard and be good religious people and become pure and worthy enough to come to him. He's the one who does the intervention. He comes and lives among humanity. He becomes fully human, first showing us what it actually means, inviting people to come and follow, including all of us nowadays, dying on the cross, killing the pain of power and death, and then, of course, showing us the way through death into resurrection, into a new life, into a new relationship with God, right? The mission of God, the Missio Dei, is simply the acknowledgement that God moves towards places of need and places of pain. He lives among. And I think there's been, in a very healthy way, a kind of reminder of what this actually looks like with some of the stereotypes, with some of the things we've been talking about, where it isn't used in those ways. When it is used as a threat, when it is used for subjugation, right? Jesus didn't come to control and take over. Jesus came to live among, and this is often what's called the incarnation, right? He incarnate, same root as like a carne asade, right? He infleshed himself. He came and lived among people. He came and lived, and that's what the early missionary work of both the disciples and the early church was. It wasn't about conversion in the sense that we had to get people to believe the same things. It was about conversion and that people were turning their lives towards something new. They were joining a new kind of community. And this kind of invitation of a life is what both Jesus and his early disciples are offering. So, kind of just a quick review on at its healthiest, that's what mission and incarnation. I've heard this compared to a bicycle. These are the two tires we need to be able to move forward, right? We need to be moving towards those in need and in pain, as Jesus saw people stumbling around like sheep without a shepherd. A wonderful description of us nowadays. And we're not the shepherds, right? Jesus is, but he sends us. And we'll talk about kind of some of what that means in this passage as well. So then, after that kind of just beautiful look at Jesus' heart and why he does this, it's interesting in the Gospel of Matthew, this is the first time the disciples are even mentioned by name, which maybe implies that you're not really a disciple, you're not really doing the work until we are, in fact, sent out. We tend to think of religious teaching, etc., as kind of the gathering, right? The gathering so that we can learn from one another, so we can learn from Christ and the original disciples. Um, in their experience, and yet they are not named as disciples, as the 12, as the apostles, etc., until they are sent out. And let me just point out again, they are sent long before they are ready, right? The Holy Spirit is not on these people. They are still going to stumble a lot, and yet Jesus seems to trust them as sent ones, as emissaries, as ambassadors representing him and his kingdom in the way before. And so he starts them out by saying, okay, look, don't prepare. Don't over prepare. Trust that God is actually out there before you, that God will be the one who takes care of you. You don't need to carry tons of supplies. As the great Eugene Peterson translation puts it, you are the supplies. You are the thing that is sent. You don't need all the answers, etc. And then he kind of warns them afterwards that this is not always going to go super well. He don't go expecting success. Be expecting harassment. They gave me a hard time. Don't go expecting everyone to suddenly join in. You're going to go, and some people are going to embrace this new thing God is doing, and others will not. And you're going to see some tragic consequences of that. You're going to say even families and community units break over me. Some will choose what God is up to in the world, and some will choose their own old ways, etc. But don't be discouraged. And then after this kind of odd pep talk in which he says, you don't need anything, God's going to take care of you, and don't expect good results, we finally get kind of the positive, the prize, I guess, comes at the very end of chapter 10. And this is it. It's very interesting. He says simply, those who receive you are also receiving me. Those who receive me are receiving the one who sent me. Those who receive a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. Those who receive a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. I assure you that everyone who gives even a cup of water to these little ones because they are my disciples will certainly be rewarded. So the big prize for stepping out and trusting God, the big prize for crossing, boundaries of what culture says these people shouldn't be talking to women or to children or the least or to sinners or to Gentiles, etc. Which we're going to see the church do all those things, cross so many boundaries as Jesus is constantly doing. Right, the big prize is not resounding success for. It's not success for being my follower. It's not becoming rich, and it's not becoming comfortable, because I'm none of those things, right? I am incarnate as a poor, misunderstood blue collar guy in an oppressed society, and you shouldn't expect other things. The prize, in a lot of ways, if we're going out with our lives and we're inviting and we're offering hospitality and we're living among people, is actually mutuality. It's actually receiving. And I think this is one of the things about this passage that is so easily missed as people see themselves as the carriers of Christ, as we see the wholeness and the healing that God is doing in the world and in our lives. And even most of the things I read about this passage talked about the importance of hospitality. And I'm not going to say that hospitality is not incredibly important for doing mission work nowadays, right? We have showed up with all the answers. People are sick of our answers. Just like Jesus did, we do need to show up with our lives. Just like Jesus did, we need to share a lot of meals. Just like Jesus did, we invite into something rather than threaten or try to convince at times, right? Unless those are appropriate, though I'm not sure if threatening is ever going to be appropriate, but convincing sometimes, if people want that. We bring our lives, we bring hospitality. But again, in this passage, I noticed a strange tendency, both in how people tend to read it and in all the commentaries and things I read this week, to talk about hospitality, of being good hosts, etc. Listen to this passage again and see what I think most people are missing because of the assumption that we should be the host, that we should be the one giving to those. And there's so much good giving from Christians a lot of the time, but we see the people in our lives, those in need, as kind of an object in which we, pour our goodness, in which we share our love, etc. But listen to what this passage actually says. Those who receive you are receiving me. Those who receive me are receiving the one who sent me. Those who receive a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. Those who receive a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. I assure you, everyone who gives even a cold cup of water to these little ones because they're my disciples will certainly be rewarded. The prize, the way this is working, what's different than what it says is we are not the hosts here. As we go out, other people will be receiving us, which is, I think, the basic problem we've had with mission for a long time is we have gone in and not allowed people to receive us. We haven't been very good guests in a lot of ways, right? We have not trusted that God is in them. We have not received things from them. We have not received hospitality. We have shown up knowing the answers. We've shown up and forced people to change. We have shown up expecting that we are bringing something, and we're missing the mutuality that Jesus almost always seems to offer when he's offering people healing, etc. Right? He doesn't just walk in and heal things. He invites them and says, what is it what you need? What is it you want? Who are you? I see you, etc. Right? It's subtle, but I think for us, not as Jesus' disciples. And if we find ourselves in this passage, right, he says, I assure you, everyone who gives even a cup of cold water to these little ones because they're my disciples. It's not a real impressive, job description we're given there, right? Little ones, this passage is almost word for word those who receive little ones, children, those who are recognized as basically worthless in the culture they're in. And Jesus says, these little ones, these worthless ones, they're the ones who get what the kingdom is all about. I am sending you out not as big, impressive ambassadors, not as people who have all the answers, not the people who understand what it is even I'm working at in the world. I'm sending you out as little ones. And when people recognize me and you in some way, shape, or form in your need, and they offer you even as simple as a cold drink of water, when they are willing to kind of satisfy your most basic needs because you are mine, that is, I think, when mission is starting. We've got some mutuality. It gets rid of that kind of paternalism. It gets rid of this condescension that shows up in so many relationships around mission and serving other people, right? The mutuality that Jesus often received. He was basically homeless and he walked around and people put him up in their home. He received a lot of things, and these amazing things happened when he was willing to not just give, which he constantly did, but also receive from others. And then we, as the little unimpressive disciples, will also be receiving as well. I was interested because that idea of a cup of cold water, this very simple thing, it's not gold, it's not major comforts. One of the other versions of this, Jesus tells them, don't go looking around for the best and the most comfortable place. And yet that image of cold water, of receiving something in the Bible often has to do with our most deep longings, right? Think about in the Psalms, as the deer pants for water, right? We will not be satisfied. We will not receive from anyone but God ultimately. And here we have an image of being sated, of being satisfied, received from someone who we are likely there to invite, as we are likely there to be serving, that also gets to serve us, etc. It's just an interesting, I think, pushback at this mentality we so often have in the American church of the performance of going to church to receive, but we're receiving directly from the church. We're not receiving the satisfaction. We're not receiving this cup of cold water directly from God, directly from our Christian teachers, etc. We are receiving it when we go as little ones on mission. And then God is satisfying us. He's showing us what our most basic needs are when we are out, when we are with other people. So again, it's a very small passage. There's some really important things in there, but I just wanted us to not miss this big point that, okay, if we are going to take seriously the belief that Jesus actually knows what he's talking about in life. We're going to take seriously the fact that we're trying to follow. We have to do the same sorts of things Jesus did, right? And so we have to leave places of comfort, just like Jesus left heaven. We have to bring our lives, which are not as put together as Jesus' life was, right? We bring our flesh, we bring our lives, we cross boundaries, and we will be serving, we will be giving, we will be pointing people to Christ, but we also have to receive hospitality, not just give it all the time. And that's often long, slow work. Just like Jesus lived for years among people before they knew who he was, just like he spends years with the disciples, training them and living alongside them, inviting them into this brand new kingdom. And then they're sent out, and then we're sent out to show in our lives, in our hospitality, both the giving and the receiving of what it is God might be up to in the world. So I love this passage. It's a good reminder of stuff that's really important for us, especially as we're going through the world and sinking that cold cup of water, which I suspect we're only going to find following Christ out into other people's lives, in which we can give to them and we can also receive from them.